Hi, everybody, and welcome to Conversations with Cody, where we talk to experts around digital wellness and digital safety. Today, I'm very excited to welcome Mark Russell from TechBear Online. This organization does fantastic work for schools and for families in the community. Mark, thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy day and helping social kids spread the news.
Thank you. It's fantastic to be here, Cheryl, and just encouraged and excited about the ongoing partnership that our two organizations just entered into and looking at strengthening one another. So it's an absolute privilege to be here this morning.
Oh, we're going to really make some nice changes in people's lives, which is exciting. Mark, you do amazing work and you deal with many families, but you must also hear some horrific stories that our children have been exposed to in the online world. In your opinion, what is the one thing our parents can do to ensure their children have a better relationship with technology?
The irony, Cheryl, is that they first
There's
have to
not
have a
one
better
thing.
relationship with their kids. What I've seen across all the families that we've consulted with is that where there's a healthy relationship between parents and children, it's much easier to install boundaries, to set values. And the whole thing about digital wellness is really about how does your device usage affect your values as a family and as an individual. So if it's eroding your family values, then that's unhealthy device usage. If it's promoting your family values, then that's healthy device usage. And that all comes from healthy parenting. So parents need to be engaged, they need to be involved, they need to be present in their kids' lives. And the more that that's evident, the easier it is to manage the online devices because then relationships become important. Then
Then you,
activity becomes important. Time together becomes important. And the way that that shapes the approach to digital wellness
mm.
is really the foundation. So it's all good and well putting blockers and filters and restrictions on, but if you don't have the relationship to carry that, it's going to be more alienating, and therefore the whole picture of wellness starts falling away.
And I think you've just nailed it there when you said, engaging. That doesn't mean engaging online. It means engaging
No,
face to face and having that conversation to improve the online relationship.
absolutely. So, for example, my son started playing Minecraft a few years ago. I had no idea what a creeper was. I didn't know what the witches, the zombies, the villagers. I didn't have a clue of what those things were. So my involvement with him was to start paying attention and getting interested in what he's interested in,
Mm.
asking him about how things work, finding out about his world, his reality. And it wasn't that I'm love Minecraft. I mean, it is digital Lego, which is great. But at the same time, it was a case of going, I'm interested in you and what you're interested in. So how do I invest in him so that he's more open to sharing things with me? Recently started playing Overwatch, which is a fun first person shooter game, but it's quite fantastical. And in that space, I'm asking him questions about what he's doing, how's leveling up. Or I quite frankly won't play Overwatch myself,
Mm.
as fun as it looks. But the point is that I'm engaged in his life, so I'm finding out what he's doing online.
Mm.
If he's listening to or watching a YouTube video online, it's in a public space, and so my wife and I can hear what he's hearing. And if something pops up, then we can engage with him. So it's how do we navigate life together? And it's about he knows that the boundaries we put in place are for his protection, his well-being, and because of our relationship with him, it's a respectful space, and so he feels safer with those boundaries.
Mm. That's
And
fantastic.
yeah, and in that time, it's a case of going, your life is important to me.
Mm.
Therefore, let's talk about this. So
And then
keeping
also
that
by
element,
asking him questions, you're also encouraging that critical thinking. Why?
absolutely,
Why are you doing that? Why is that important? What if that didn't happen? What would happen then? So you're also developing those critical thinking skills.
very much so. And it's also when we're online, we can get so void of actual emotional interaction and relationship. This is a way to support our relationship by engaging about questions, by watching him playing, sharing videos with him, or watching videos that he's watching, and then discussing it. So it always comes back to the relationship and how do we strengthen that relationship together.
So true. Tell me, Mark, what platforms are proving to be the most devastating for our preteens and teens?
Wow.
It's a bit of a
Sure. So
loaded question. All of them.
yeah, it's a shotgun approach. The internet.
Yeah.
Um,
WWW.
so when we look at my experiences of clients and people that I've worked with, it varies. So we've had to experience and work through cyberbullying with families on WhatsApp and social media platforms or communication media platforms at schools. So
Mm,
whether it's instant messaging or WhatsApp, there's been a ton of cyberbullying happening there. So that's incredibly damaging, especially for preteens.
mm.
There was a situation at a primary school in Cape Town where cyberbullying was happening and through WhatsApp. And when the one father went and looked at this, he landed up seeing what was being shared on his daughter's device. Well, he took screenshots, shared it with a whole lot of other parents, but he hadn't redacted the names of the children involved. So that became quite a traumatic experience for all the families involved. So that's one side. Um, we're seeing Snapchat is probably the most dangerous right now because of the disappearing messages or snaps. And so what's happening is a lot of children are engaging in communication or activity or sharing data, sharing information, sharing images and videos that they think are going to be safe because there's no accountability once the snap has disappeared.
Maybe.
So we've had in the last 5 months, we've had 4 cases where families have contacted us saying my child's been involved in either being sextorted,
Mm.
where they started off on Instagram chatting. The one guy, 14-year-old teenage boy, chatting with the girl that he met on Instagram. 3 months later, they moved to Snapchat, started sharing images. All of a sudden, the girl was actually a syndicate somewhere overseas and started asking or demanding $200 from him, or they would share the images with everyone on his contact list.
Oh,
He thought he was speaking to someone who was his age, and they built up this trust and groomed him, and then took full advantage. There's been other cases in Cape Town through Snapchat being where a situation where a teenage girl was sent images to what is now an ex-boyfriend, and he landed up taking pictures using another phone of the screen. So the snap didn't show that it was being screen grabbed, but he took the pictures and then sent that viral.
no.
So now there's all sorts of legal action coming in there. We haven't experienced directly too much when it comes to Discord, but I know there's another platform in Cape Town where children were being asked around what they've seen, what's the worst thing they've seen online. And on Discord, a young South African child actually saw a friend committing suicide online on a live feed. We've had cases
That
with
never leaves you.
parents.
You know what I mean? That it's just awful.
So the reality is that whatever adults can access online, children can access online. So even when, I mean, it's a year ago since the 7th of October attacks in Israel, and a lot of that footage, the live footage, was being shared through Telegram. So I know of children in Cape Town that have been exposed to footage of that massacre that happened at that music festival and seen footage of people being killed and raped. And so there's all of that footage that's out on the internet that children are getting access to. So Discord, because of anything that's got user content production and user to user sharing, has potential for all sorts of traumatic and unmoderated content. And I think that's the struggle. So um, obviously, aside from pornography, a lot of children that we've or families we've had to deal with kids being exposed to pornography. And I mean, 80% of according to Pornhub themselves, 80% of the product is going to include some level of gender-based violence. It's going to include forced sexual activity, degrading talk, degrading actions, and all that kind of stuff. So children as young as 8, 9, 10 years old are being exposed to this, and parents are finding out afterwards. So if you want to ask about the platforms, every single platform where there's peer-to-peer sharing or media content sharing has got a potential to have
Mm.
traumatic and horrific consequences.
And you know, once something has been seen, it can't be unseen. And somewhere down the line, that does influence your behavior and your thinking moving forward. So being a little bit stricter with your restrictions and your boundaries isn't always a bad thing, even though at the time they might doth protest. In the long run, it's actually for the best.
Cheryl, that's the crazy thing is how many parents are actually getting bullied by their kids because the whole thing is if I don't have this, I'm going to be left out. So if you look at, for example, social media, the whole focus around social media is about being liked, being shared, being wanted, being eventually popular enough to be monetized. But the whole idea of not being a part of something meets our greatest fears as people of not being accepted. And if you think about it, the first thing that happens to a child generally after birth is it gets placed on the mother's chest. And where there's skin to skin contact and that oxytocin gets released and there's that bonding that happens, the rest of our lives is about are we being accepted or are we being rejected? And social media is building anxiety and depression and fear around no one's liking my post. People haven't responded quickly enough. What are they going to say? What are they going to think? And so
Why is
within
my
that,
life not as lovely as Lucy's? Lucy gets this, and
absolutely.
so you're never happy with what you've actually got.
So we create this dysmorphia of going, I've got to escape my present reality and go into something else where I feel good about myself, or I've got to change myself so I can be accepted.
Mm.
And in that case, it's not me being accepted, it's the change. And so on all these platforms, you've got to be aware that the boundaries that parents should be putting in place aren't restrictions to harm or to withdraw children from
Punish
engaging. It's
you.
about, yeah, absolutely. It's about creating a safe space where in the boundary they're safe and outside of the boundary they're at risk. The same as we have walls and burglar bars and security guards and dogs and cameras and whatever else around our properties nowadays. In our property, we're safe.
Mm.
And so how do we embrace that online as well? And so I think when it comes to parents actually stepping up to being parents, we were never trained to be parents in this generation. We were never
Nobody
given the hand.
received a book. You don't get
It
a book.
wasn't written yet. We're only writing the books now for stuff that's already 20 years in the making. And so I think parents can really give themselves a little bit of grace
Mm.
and should be softer on themselves in terms of what's happened and go, right, how do we go forward now?
Mm.
Where do we take a step back so we can go forward in a healthier way?
Yeah, and also don't be afraid of boredom. Oh,
Yeah,
I'm bored. Oh, shame. Boredom breeds creativity, and I think we've kind of
absolutely.
forgotten that. It's so easy to just hand over a screen. We shouldn't be handing over that screen. They should be playing outside, playing in their room, reading a book. There are other options. So we're too quick to go to the screen, I think. And I don't know when that changed, but it does feel like we're afraid to say no.
Sure. I think if you look at a couple of years ago when the fourth industrial revolution was breaking forth and everyone was getting excited about technology,
Mm.
companies were saying, well, jobs that our kids are going to have haven't been invented yet. They haven't been designed yet. But the one thing that they do know is that human soft skills are going to be important and creative thinking, critical thinking, out of the box thinking. But now all of a sudden in this technological revolution, we go straight to Siri or Alexa or whatever the next AI is.
We've
And
stopped
instead of
thinking.
being creative, we stop being creative. And so now there's this whole push in terms of in the marketplace of Gen Alphas and Gen Zers are being they're not being as productive in the workplace. They're being more distracted. They're not able to. They're more shy. They're not confident in bringing forth ideas because of the fear of the rejection, the fear of not being accepted, the fear of being able to get that
They don't know
sort
how
of
to
build that.
handle it face to face.
Exactly. And so those are the motivations that we have to have as parents now going, how do I set my child up for success going forward? And if that means less screen time and more boredom, so that they can start getting a little bit more creative in their thinking and fill that space, that dead space, I think that's it's a investment worth looking at.
And also, sorry, I met a principal who said such a beautiful analogy. She said, as parents, we need to stop parenting in silos. We need to talk to each other. So if
Absolutely.
our children are friends, let's talk to each other. What are your digital boundaries at home? These are my digital boundaries at home. So that if there is a case of a sleepover or something like that, that parent is aware that, oh, actually, Johnny's mom doesn't like him to watch YouTube. So we won't watch YouTube, we'll watch a movie instead. And just instead of siloing it and just saying sorry afterwards, let's talk about it openly and learn from each other. We're always too quick to just not share with each other what's happening, and I think that will solve a lot of the problems.
Or we develop that critical mass, and then it becomes a case of it's a community and a cultural shift. We'll find the person that doesn't have the boundaries lands up becoming the person feeling like they're on the outside.
Mm.
So,
Lovely one day.
yeah. So just last week, I was meeting with a family, and the daughter is at a high school in Cape Town, and she was actually being, in my terminology, my understanding, she was being bullied because of the restrictions her families have got, or the boundaries her families have placed. And no one else has got those same boundaries. And so we were negotiating and navigating that space, but the whole thing was I'm the only one, and I wouldn't be surprised in her situation, knowing where she's at school, that I wouldn't be surprised that she might be the only one in her social group with those boundaries. But now it's a case of encouraging the parents to discuss with the other parents to say, right, let's develop this community, let's develop this culture. And every school I speak at, every parent body that I connect with, they're all coming to the same conclusions and going, oh, wait a minute, I didn't know I could have these boundaries. And then someone in the back of the hall puts up their hand and goes, yeah, we've been doing that for a while now.
Mm.
Yeah, our
Because we're
child
not
has no
talking.
recreational screen time. So you're not alone. And now all of a sudden, parents are feeling, oh, wait a minute, I've got permission to actually be a parent because I don't have to fear if my child's being left out. But
Mm.
just on that exact point as well, Cheryl, when we're talking about social groups and children feeling like they're left out and they're not going to have friends, or they're going to lose friends if they're not on the WhatsApp group or the Snapchat group, the question then we have to look at is, what is a friendship?
Mm. Is that
And
person
it's
your
really,
friend because you're not on
yeah.
Snapchat?
Are you a common interest buddy, or are you an actual friend?
And I
And
guess
an
you
actual
stop seeking the common interest and seeking the actual friend who you're going to meet face to face. That
friend.
face to face engagement. I mean, I say that I consider you a friend, and we've never actually met. We've always been on a screen, but it's still face to face. Does that make sense? Like it's you've
It
got to have
is.
that face to face.
And this is a good use of technology. I mean, we're sitting in two different. You're in Georgia. I'm in Cape Town. So technology in this dynamic is fantastic because it means that we get to engage across continents. Even my
Mm,
wife's working for a British organizer, a company, and she has meetings 2 or 3 times a day with people in offices in London.
mm,
We're in Manchester, and so technology in this way is fantastic. Uh, so many of our generation who have immigrated overseas, and the grandparents only get to see their kids
on a screen.
on a screen. And I mean, that's devastating because then we don't get to co-regulate. Our nervous systems, our bodies are built to be in each other's spaces, and just through being present together. And this is also why it's so important. Our opening point was parents being present with their kids,
Mm,
because actually our bodies are built and designed for our nervous systems to regulate off each other. And so if someone's stressed and another calm person walks into the room, the stressed person will start calming down because of the presence of the other person. Now we can't do that with a
yeah,
technological device. I'm sure somewhere they're developing some kind
I'm
of
sure.
medical AI thing where you've got an app that regulates, but it's not the same as what we've designed for in an organic relationship.
And I read somewhere as well that young children need to be feel their mother's or their parental touch for at least 10 minutes a day.
Yeah.
And I know life is busy, and I think the other problem is some of the boundaries are quite harsh. So, like the 2 hour screen time for foundation phase children, it's hard for parents that are working hard. So,
Yeah,
or
especially
working
single
long
parents.
hours. We say, every minute offline is a good minute. So, don't be hard on yourself if it's 4 hours or 3 hours, but make sure every day that you can try and take 1 minute away or 2 minutes, 10 minutes away. Every minute offline is a good minute. So, we mustn't put these harsh, strict rules onto each other's because it's easier just to just not do it.
Absolutely, and I think the other point, and we've discussed this off camera before as well, is if we go from the one extreme of the pendulum to the other extreme of the pendulum, we go from improper use isn't corrected by no use,
Mm.
but it's corrected by proper use. So how do we find a healthy embrace of technology? There's one family in Cape Town. I absolutely love them. I've had a couple of sessions or consults with them. they love being physically active. And so what the parents do is they add 10 minutes of extra screen time to the children, their two daughters' allowance, if they depending on how many kilometers they've added up onto their
Go,
running app
go.
or their swimming app or their whatever it is. They've so these girls are getting super fit, and the motivation, the carrot is to spend more time
I'm on
online.
the screen sitting on your bum. Doesn't quite make sense, but it works.
No, so there's not, yeah, the sedentary lifestyle of people online compared to this family. I mean, they super active, and the girls get to enjoy the online time. But what's happening is that the online time doesn't have the same appeal anymore because they're getting more of their dopamine, they're getting more of their joy from being present
Outside.
outdoors, being active, enjoying that time with family, and all the rest of their lives are getting healthier because healthy body, healthy mind kind of
100%.
approach.
It gets rid of that stress, that anxiety, fresh air. And look, it works for them, and that's great. So I think you just need to find what works for you. What is
Absolutely.
the biggest challenge in your mind that our families are facing when it comes to technology?
Sure. So it's a bit of a combination, and I think we've alluded to it already, is
Mm,
breakdown of relationships. So where parents used to be the primary influence in their kids' lives and then school after that, they're no longer that anymore. Kids, especially that are on social media, connecting more with their friends than with their family, that time spent away from their families means that their values are changing, their ideologies are changing. We know that social media is using algorithms to really indoctrinate us or to send through propaganda according to the powers that be. And so with the biggest struggle really is relationships that are breaking down because of time being spent online rather than being present and engaged.
mm.
So most of the families that I engage with or consult with are their first concern is time more than content. So
Wow.
while they're aware that there's a lot of dangerous content out there, the biggest issue is how much time my child is spending online and how to
And that's
manage
just
that.
that
When
dopamine dump all the time. So that's where you're getting
correct.
your joy from. So you don't even think to stand up.
Well, I mean, there was a family that contacted us in the early days of TechBear, where a beach family up on the west coast of Cape Town. They loved surfing and being outdoors together, and then the one son became a gamer. And after a couple of months of gaming, he no longer wanted to go to the beach. So our instant dopamine hits are taking us away from more healthy um, engaging activities where there might be a delayed response. And so, if we look at how our reward system and our limbic system work together, wherever we've got a memory that's got a happy emotion, we're going to be motivated or aroused or stimulated to go and do something. So that affects our behavior because there's a reward at stake. So if we know that there's a reward coming, we will change our behavior even if it's delayed. But if we're just getting instant rewards all the time, why do I have to choose a
Why
behavior
should
that's
I
going to
get
make
up?
it work? Exactly. So with that, I think it's the definitely the breakdown of relationships and time spent online. Just chatting and seeing at gym, I speak to a couple of guys that are in their 20s and they've grown up with technology. They've grown up in the digital age. And what's interesting is a lot of them are really struggling in interpersonal relationships.
Mm.
So they'd rather text each other. One guy was telling me how he met this girl through a dating app. They messaged each other for about 3 weeks and then went on their first date. But when they sat at the dinner table in the restaurant, they couldn't speak to each other.
Oh, that's
It
so
was
sad.
absolute crickets. And so it was literally if they maybe they brought their phones out and WhatsApped and
Each
messaged each
other.
other, they
I've
could have
seen
had a good
families
date.
do that, Mark. That's not even funny. I've seen families
Yeah.
sitting at a restaurant all on their phones. I'm like, why did you come out? I don't understand.
Exactly. It's one of the families that contacted us, and we came in to help set up some restrictions on devices. But the father saw his 13-year-old daughter's birthday party hijacked by the fact that when the friends were all sitting around the table singing happy birthday, all their friends were on their phones. So while they came to celebrate her, what was on the screen was more important to them than she was.
Mm.
And so it's those kind of breakdown of relationships where the more connectivity we seem to have through fiber and fast internet speeds, we
We
the less
disconnect
connected
further
we
from each
really are.
other.
Correct. Yeah. So it's the biggest challenge from that I'm seeing is the breakdown of relationships.
Okay. Um, should a parent have to face any of these harsh realities online? What is their next step?
Well, I mean, before they get to those harsh realities, get hold of social kids and TechBear and get the stuff put in place and educated so that we can avoid it. So if we can do prevention rather than just
Mm,
response or reaction, then that's helpful. But the reality is that there is a lot of help out there. What a lot of people don't know is that every police station in the country has actually got a social concerns or social crimes officer dedicated to dealing with things like cyberbullying, with sextortion, and
that's
they'll
great to
manage and
hear.
handle that. Yeah, that I didn't know that until the Film and Publications Board Safer Internet Day earlier this year, and they had one of the officers from a police station in Delft that came and shared that with us. So it's one of those things where parents don't know that there's a way forward. So if your child's being bullied, for example, take screenshots, block the person so they can no longer bully you. Make sure that your child is safe, or make sure that you're safe if it's a child listening to this. Report it to a safe adult where it's a parent, and we don't know if all parents are necessarily safe.
Mm.
And then it could be a teacher, it could be a counselor. There's
A
Childline
circle
on
of trust, as
116.
Cody always says, there must be a circle of trust around you.
Absolutely. And who's the superhero in that circle of trust? I mean, who's the elephant, the trustworthy elephant?
Yeah.
Um, and so within those spaces, I reach out to a person that is safe, and that person that's safe isn't someone that's going to judge you for what you've been exposed to. They're going to be someone that's going to journey with you through whatever consequences there might be. They're going to be encouraging and supportive.
Mm.
And
They're
then
not going to
if there's
overreact. They're going to be there for you.
correct,
You're the victim.
correct. The worst thing is when people feel like they're going to be shamed for doing something they weren't meant to, and that shame is going to keep them trapped in a cycle of ongoing or perpetual anxiety and stress.
And just
And
you
then
losing
obviously
faith in
there's
yourself.
absolutely, and then there's also, I mean, there's a lot of people that are available in terms of counselors, coaches that can help people through these kind of spaces, and that's one of the things we do is we can refer people to professionals, and then there's some journeys that we do one-on-one with the family, or when it comes to children, we'll journey with the parents and try and empower the parents to be able to support the child in that space. If there's anything to do with sexual content being shared or distributed, then the Film and Publications Board have actually got a forensics team that can help remove content that's gone online, that's gone viral.
Fantastic
And
news.
so there's a lot of help out there before you even necessarily even have to press charges.
I think the
Um,
biggest step is recognizing I need help.
yes.
Speak up. And that's what we try to teach our young children, that their voices are their strongest tool. It's their biggest ammunition. And that circle of trust is with them through thick and thin. So, Mark, I'm running out of time because I could honestly speak to you all day about all these things. But just a heads up from Social Kids, we are in awe of the work that TechBear does, how you support communities and how you support families. And we're very excited to be on this journey with you to protect the little ones. So that's your foundation phase. So we can start developing healthy digital habits. Like you said, prevention is better than cure. And if we can develop those healthy habits from a young age, hopefully, and no offense, you won't be so busy.
Yeah, we also work with adults in addiction recovery from digital addictions, from gambling, pornography, social media.
Hmm?
And so, yeah, there's always going to be work for us,
There's always going to
unfortunately,
be
but
work.
grateful for it.
Yeah. Well done, Mark. Great to chat. And I've got so many more questions. We might have to do another Cody conversation.
Fantastic. Looking forward to it.
Thanks so much.